Okay, I think we can already see people coming in. So welcome to the early birds. Nice to see you here. As you're coming in, it would be great if you could introduce yourselves in the chat. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Are you an e-resident? Do you have a company, either in Estonia or in another country? And what are you looking for in this webinar? Hi, Yuri. Nice to have you here. And hi, Santosh from India. So we have lots of people streaming in. So as you're streaming in, guys, just once again, introduce yourselves in the chat. Let us know where you're from, if you're an e-resident, and what you're interested in hearing more about today in this webinar. There's someone from Australia. Nice to see you, fellow Aussie. I think it's quite late there in Australia, so thank you for staying up to join us. Hi, Jonathan from the UK. Nice to have you here. And we've got a few people from Asia, in Indonesia, in Taipei.
Costa Rica too, wow.
Ooh, Costa Rica. It must be absolutely beautiful there around this time of year. And then the very next one, someone from our neighboring country of Finland. Welcome from Finland.
Sorry about Eurovision.
Yeah, we were a little bit upset here.
Also, you know, Hannah, this is the special solopreneur edition of the webinar too. So I'd be curious to hear what people think about the word solopreneur too. Is that something you identify with? Would you rather, do you call yourself something else? Maybe you can write that in the chat as well.
Okay, so I can see that we have a lot of people already here. We've nearly got around 100 people. So let's get started with the webinar. I'm Hannah, and I'm from the eResidency team. I'm head of content here. And this is my colleague, Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm head of marketing at eResidency.
And we also have a few special guests here on the webinar. We have Maya Middlemiss, who's an e-resident. I will let you give your intros in a minute. I just want to give the some of the ground rules before we get to it. And we also have Philip Weiss and Mattis Paiv from Xolo as well. So thank you for joining us. So if you have questions, you can already start putting them in the Q&A. And throughout the webinar, we'll break off from a presentation and answer these questions. We also have a few colleagues joining us who aren't necessarily visible, but they are definitely here in the background, and they'll be answering questions in writing as well, Katrina and Brigitta. So thank you guys for being here as well. I think we're ready to get started in that sense. So keep chatting, keep networking in the chat. We'll get started with the presentation now. So I need to share my screen, which I can never find. There it is. Okay. So as I mentioned, welcome to the live Q&A with the eResidency team. This is a special edition for solopreneurs, and there is a big reason for that, and that is because of our guest expert, Xolo. So I'm going to ask Philip and Mattis to introduce Xolo to you all.
Right. Hello, everybody. So nice to see so many people from so many different countries. My name is Mattis. I'm marketing manager for Xolo Leap, which is a service provider for the e-residency companies. And Xolo Leap is actually one of the oldest. We just turned 8 this year. So we have quite a lot of experience with the variety of problems this e-residency companies face every day. I think you can go to the next slide. And yeah, what we are offering is from registering a company to the taxes reporting and compliance. So we are kind of covering all the business administration stuff you face every day. one of those things, like additional to accounting and taxes and reporting, we also provide you with like this all-in-one solution, like a user interface for your company. So for example, it's really good that you can actually integrate your bank accounts with the Xolo accounts, and you will be always notified if there are any kind of mismatch from transactions and with the expense documents you upload. But yeah, in general, we are quite popular, actually most popular service provider for e-residency companies. So always happy to help you whenever you need an e-residency company.
Thank you, Mattis. And one of your clients and also one of our most engaged e-residents in our community is Maya Middlemiss. So Maya, I wonder if you could give a little intro to yourself and your company as well.
Sure. Yes. Well, I'm a full-time freelancer, solopreneur. I've been an e-resident in Estonia for just over 5 years now. I'm an independent journalist, podcaster, content creator. I love writing and talking about future of work and remote work topics and borderless business. So that's led me to working directly with both Xolo and with the e-Residency team, because there are so many amazing startup stories here and people doing interesting things. So I'm also here as a 5-year customer of Xolo, back from when it was Leapin in the day. And yeah, I'm glad to help out with any questions about long-term freelancing and solopreneurship. And I'd love to see the debate unfolding about the terminology, because I think there is a difference between being a freelancer and being a solopreneur. I host the Future is Freelance podcast, where we also look at that edge between the two. And I lead the Remote Work Spain community, where we have a number of e-residents presently as well.
Great, thank you. And yeah, hopefully some discussion will come out when we present on the slides a bit later on about this topic, and we can, maybe you can bring some of the people's opinions back into our discussion as well. All right, so I'm going to kick off with part 1 of this presentation. We actually have 3 parts. I'll be doing parts 1 on what is e-residency and parts 3 on taxes, and Alex will be covering company creation and business banking, which is part 2. And in between, we'll break off for a few questions on each topic. So let's get started. What is e-residency? So e-Residency is a government-issued digital identity. It's issued by the government of Estonia. It provides access to Estonian e-services and a secure digital signature as well. It's your digital key to do business in Estonia. So I'll cover this a little bit more later. And perhaps most surprisingly to our team, but I think what has become one of our biggest assets is it's also a huge global community of 100,000 e-residents, service providers like Xolo and others, startup community members here in Estonia and abroad, and government related entities as well. What is e-residency not? Well, it's not a travel document, so you can't use it for a citizenship, visa, or resident permit, or to travel into the EU or to Estonia. It's not a tax residency, and we will cover this in part 3 in a lot more detail. And it's also not guaranteeing you a business bank account or a personal bank account. Banks and fintechs themselves decide who their clients are. So just because you are an e-resident doesn't guarantee that a bank will take you on as a client. So who can apply for e-residency? E-residency is for individuals, so you would apply as your own person using your own government-issued document, for example, a passport, or if you're in the EU, and European European identity document. You need to show that you have a substantial interest in using e-services in Estonia and also starting a company here. It's of course not open for Estonian citizens or residents of Estonia, as we have here in Estonia our own national IDs that also we can use for digital services. And there are restrictions on new applications from Russians or Belarusians. This has been in place since March last year. Just throughout this presentation, I'm going to show you a few real e-resident case studies as well, just so you know that there are real e-residents out there running their businesses with e-residency. This is Navina. She's from Serbia originally, but she lives a lot of the time in the US. And she founded Recruit, which is an online recruitment platform. And she absolutely loves having her business here in Estonia because she can run it as a digital nomad from wherever she is in the world. And also it gives her security and this European, this foot in the European market as well. Okay, so why might you want to become an e-resident? Some of this I've sort of covered already, but the absolute main motivation is that you can register an EU-based company 100% online from anywhere in the world. You can run your business remotely with 24/7 secure access to Estonian e-services, like, for example, Xolo's portal. You can log in using your ID and run your business that way. If you have business banking that's in Estonia, you can also use your ID for that. If you're declaring taxes, VAT, this can all be done online as well. And of course, filing your annual report and any other accounting needs can be done online with your digital ID. You can also digitally sign documents to the highest European regulation or eIDAS standards. And these are considered by law in Europe as strong as handwritten signatures. And they're more secure than Adobe and DigiDoc versions of signatures as well. And finally, as I mentioned, another reason to become an e-resident is that you get to connect with this community of 100,000 people from over 170 countries, many of whom are entrepreneurs and many of whom are solopreneurs, freelancers, and digital nomads, like hopefully many of the people on this webinar today. And speaking of solopreneurs and digital nomads, this is Patrick. He's originally from Germany, but he's right now based in Cyprus, although he does travel a lot. And he runs his IT consulting agency, Zented, as an e-resident out of Estonia. So the application process. The application is online. It takes between 30 minutes and an hour, depending on whether you have all the right documents and have thought about your motivation statement, these kinds of things. On your online application, you need to choose a pickup location, which I'll cover in the next slide. And you need to pay the state fee using credit card, MasterCard or Visa. The Estonian Police and Border Guard Board will review your application, and they have a statutory time limit of 30 days, but they can extend that if they request more information from you, for example. And once it's approved, and I think about 93% currently of applications are approved, are successful, your e-residency kit will be sent by the police to your pickup location that you put in your application within a few weeks. And you may need for certain pickup locations to pay a cash fee because they're a private operator when you pick it up. So just so you know, if you are collecting it from a private service provider, to have a bit of cash on hand, make an appointment either with the embassy or one of these service providers and collect your ID in person. Give your you need to do it in person because you need to give your fingerprints and authenticate your identity. Once you have your card, you're ready to go. You can access already the Estonian e-services and start your company. And the whole process from applying online to picking up your card takes on average between 3 and 8 weeks. And Maya, I wondered maybe if you wanted to talk a little bit about your experience, because you've actually done this process twice now, because you applied 5 or 6 years ago almost, and you recently renewed. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your experience with the process?
I have very little to add to what you've just said, actually, Hannah, because it's extremely straightforward and easy. Luckily, I got reminders in good time because it was 5 years, I think, when my original ID or status was going to expire. And for me, living in Spain, the appointment is at the Estonian embassy in Madrid, which is a short train ride away from me. There was also a pop-up pickup point offered in Barcelona as well, which wasn't there the first time. I think the renewal online was very straightforward. The questionnaire maybe was slightly more complex than 5 years ago, because I think there's more concern now about money laundering and the status of, where your funds are coming from and so on. So I remember a slightly more involved questionnaire, but it was very quick. It was within 2 or 3 weeks. I think I got the email saying that my application had been accepted, and then I was able to go ahead and arrange and decide between Madrid and Barcelona which city I fancied a day out in and go and pick up my card. So the actual appointment within the embassy I was probably in and out within less than 5 minutes, to be honest. It's extremely quick because it's a tiny little embassy in Madrid. It's next to all the posh boutique fashion shops. So you go up some back steps and meet a friendly person. You get given a kit with your card in. You get your fingerprints scanned even on renewal in case your fingers have changed. And then before you know it, you're away with your kit. And I'll be perfectly honest, mine went straight in the drawer when I got home because I use Smart ID for everything. And that's carried on working, which is brilliant. So it's just like everything else to do with Estonian administration. It's very frictionless, very straightforward, and very easy to engage with.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, that's something to just...
Yes, please do. Please, Mattis.
So a lot of things, or a lot of e-residents or first-time e-residents, when they apply, they often get some additional questions from the government. I just want to say that I've seen a lot of those people like getting panicked, really, and just answer those questions as honestly as you can, and don't worry about it. It's just a regular procedure.
Yeah, it's very normal. It's like any government issued identity document. I think they want to make sure that the people that they're including in Estonia's digital society are all above board and they've got all the necessary information they need. So this slide here is a map of the pickup points that we currently offer. The little white dots are all Estonian embassies or police offices in Estonia. The pink dots are these private service providers that I mentioned before. And these are sort of relatively new for us. I think we opened them in 2021, not so new, but relatively new pickup points. And they have been a real attempt for us to try and extend the reach, because otherwise, as you can see, we have a few gaps. Because Estonia is a small country, there's not so many embassies in the world. Then you can also see there's a few yellow dots as well. Hopefully you can see those. One is in Barcelona and the other one is representing the Balkans. These are as Maya mentioned, these are these temporary pickup points. So they're not necessarily there full time, but they're missions that the Estonian Ministry of Foreign Affairs does once a month or so to these locations to give out cards to people who've applied there. So those ones are a little bit more flexible. You need to sort of understand that it may not be the date that you expect. You sort of have, they'll tell you well in advance when they're coming, but it's a trial thing for us. And if it's doing well, we will hopefully roll that out to more locations in the next couple of years. One thing to note is that if you put in your application one pickup location and then you decide you want to change it, there will be a fee for that. And also there are obviously gaps. There are many countries without pickup locations. So you may need to travel to another country to pick up your card. And before you do so, make sure you have the right to travel there. So whether you need to have a visa or make sure that you have some kind of tourist visa, or if you don't have a tourist visa, that you can apply for one easily and get that before you travel. Okay, Alex, have you looked in the Q&A for any questions that maybe are relevant for this topic?
Yeah, there's quite a few questions about what if there's not a pickup location near me. So unfortunately, as Hannah mentioned, we would love to have more locations around the world, and that's something that we're always considering. Like Hannah mentioned, we opened up these 4 new locations that are run by private service providers. But yeah, just keep an eye on our websites and everything. But for right now, what you see on the map on your screen is where the pickup locations are currently.
Tyler is asking about pickup points in the United States.
Yeah, actually this map, there's a couple more here too. So you can see the dot by New York, but there's also Washington, D.C., and there's also San Francisco as well. And potentially Miami soon. You heard it here first.
And Tyler, just to, I can see that you've got a sort of second question there. We will cover this a little bit later in the presentation, so stay tuned for that. So Rich is asking about changing the address. So yes, you can. For your e-Residency, you won't need to, unless I don't think you'll need to for that. Only when you renew, you would change it. But for your Estonian company, you'll just need to change the address of your board from Germany to the address in Portugal or wherever you are.
There's a question here about, can someone pick up it on your behalf? And no, it's not possible. So the digital identity card is issued to you directly. So you have to go pick it up because you have to give your fingerprints. And in this kind of one face-to-face meeting that you have either with the embassy staff or with the staff at BLS is really important to protect the integrity and security of Estonia's digital ID. So you will have to go yourself to do that.
Okay, I think we've covered a few of those questions there. So let's move on, because we do have limited time, to the second part of the presentation on company creation. So take it away, Alex.
All right. Thanks, Hannah. So maybe before we go into how, let's talk a little bit about why you should open up a limited liability company in Estonia. So first of all, as we talked about a little bit so far, when you have a company in Estonia, you can run your company from anywhere. So I know a large part of the draw of being a solopreneur or a freelancer, or being your own boss, is that you have the flexibility to work where you want. And that's something that we really try to help you with as well. When you have your company in Estonia, you have that flexibility. I know, especially after the pandemic, even more people want to have the chance to do that. So with eResidency, setting up your company here, you have that flexibility. And of course, time is precious, right? So you have more time for your clients if you want, or if you have more time for doing what you love. So you can spend less time doing your business administration, your paperwork, when you have your company in Estonia. And of course, we have this global network of advice and support in our marketplace. So we have Xolo here, which is one of the members of the eResidency marketplace. So there's other companies that offer services like legal advice, even marketing help, things like that. So that's another benefit you get. And I think one really important part, going back to kind of my earlier, if you heard me at the beginning, I was asking you, do you think of yourself as a solopreneur or a freelancer, or how do you define yourself? Well, I think one thing that we're seeing a lot is that people who start off as freelancers, maybe they just doing some projects for a company or on the side from their job as a side hustle. At some point, it makes sense for you to register a limited liability company because you get credibility in the eyes of your clients and partners. You might get some benefits in terms of expenses and reporting those expenses and tax benefits. So I would actually ask Maya to jump in here, because Maya, I think this has been your experience too, as far as I know, starting off as a freelancer and then moving to a solopreneur with a limited liability company.
Yeah, that was the case just over 5 years ago when I first became an Estonian e-resident in order to open a company as quickly as I could, because I was a Brit living in Spain. At the time, opening a business in Spain was going to take me a minimum of 12 weeks. And I had a contract pending with a US company who, for whatever reason, legally, they couldn't contract with a freelancer in Europe. They had to deal with a legal entity. So I was looking at the quickest way to do that. At the time, I mean, I could have opened a company in the UK, but things were politically very uncertain there as to what the status of that would have been within the EU. So I looked at the Estonian route, and I had just had time to get that done. And so that worked really well for me. Obviously, I've stuck around for 5 years for other reasons in terms of how straightforward the admin is and simply being able to register expenses and things like that. I was in that year also closing down my Spanish limited company that I had previously, and even that has been painful and expensive and incredibly difficult. So I never want to do that again. It means I can be a freelancer here in Spain, operate through my Estonian OU, and basically operate in that way. It's just much more straightforward. The limited liability is important too. And I think that's one reason a lot of people do want to open a separate entity. I work with a lot of startups with emergent technologies. I've done a lot of work in the crypto and blockchain space. Some of the people I was writing content for 5 years ago are now being investigated by their own regulatory bodies. So I'm very glad to have that arm's length relationship with them that limited liability provides. So it's definitely a very straightforward route to access that.
All right, thank you.
And Mattis, maybe you could just give your view of the Estonian business environment as well.
Right. Yeah. So what I think Estonia is like probably the most easiest country to start a company with, because we have like super flat tax system, everything, as you mentioned many times before now, that then everything can be done online, and even like our personal like tax reports are done in a few clicks. So it's super easy. And one additional thing I think is important in Estonian business environment is you can have access to people like super easily. Like we are always open to new ideas, always open to new business proposals, etc. So it's really a good place to start a business.
Thank you.
All right, let's go into the nitty-gritty now. Talk about how you can do this. So company registration. So after you've gone through the process of applying for your residency and picking up your card, which Hannah just talked about in the previous section, after you've done that, you can choose a business service provider. So yeah, one of these business service providers is Xolo, that's on this webinar with us today. And I should mention there are other options, of course, but definitely look at them, especially if you're a solopreneur. And then you're going to log into the business register. This is an online platform in Estonia. Or either log in directly or through an API through a service provider such as Xolo to register your company. And I should add here that Estonia broke the world record last year live on the stage at London Tech Week, where an e-resident registered a company in 15 minutes and 33 seconds, I think. So quite easy, quite fast. And then you're going to want to check if your company, needs a license or notice of economic activity. Estonia is not very onerous in this sense. They don't require licenses for a lot of activities, but if you're involved in something, the usual suspects, something in financial services or something like that, you might need to look if you need one of those. And if you do need something like that, it's relatively easy to apply for that. And after that, you can apply for a business bank account, which we will talk about more in detail. I know there's lots of questions about business banking, and actually, just maybe one more housekeeping note too. I see there's a lot of action happening in the chat, which is great. But if you do have a question that you want answered live, please do put it in the Q&A. Then we will look there when we take our next break. Okay, so we mentioned this group of experts and people who can help you with your business. So this is where we'll talk about the marketplace. So there's 129 companies in the marketplace, and you can see the ratings. So again, Xolo, that's with us today, is one of these companies. There is a local contact person. It's just is a local service that you will need when you're setting up your company here. But that's the only mandatory service. And this is for companies with a foreign management board. Their foreign management board, or the management board has a foreign address.
Yes.
Sorry, thank you. Hannah's giving me the side eye here.
Sorry.
It's all right.
It was fine.
It's a complicated string of words. I've only worked here for 6 years. So anyway, also there's this service can only be provided by professional or licensed representatives. That's something really important too. So these are licensed by Estonian authorities. And they also offer things like company address, mailbox, and messenger service in Estonia. So this is something that's useful for you, especially if you're a solopreneur who's traveling a lot and isn't living in one place all the time. And I think what's maybe most important here, what I really want to stress, is that this contact person service we talked about, this is if your management board has a foreign address. This contact person is not a local director. I know that in a lot of countries, you have to hire a local director. So you have to have someone who has shares in your company or who has a controlling interest in your company. In Estonia, that's not the case. We have 100% foreign ownership. So you can own your company outright. You don't have to have a local director. And that's a really important part of Estonia's competitiveness for you. And of course, other services, company formation, legal, tax consulting. Definitely check this out. You'll get a link to this in the follow-up email as well. So how much will company incorporation cost? This is always what people want to know, right? So we talked about this already. This application fee is 100 to 130 euros to get your digital ID. Then the state fee to register an OU, which is a private limited company, is 265 euros. So that's a one-time fee to register the company. And then this local contact person service, if you need it, which most e-residents do, it's 200 to 400 euros per year. And then, depending on which accounting provider you choose, this can average around 50 euros per month. And you need to consider other costs as well. So if you need to travel to a pickup location, so if you need to, if you don't have a pickup location in your country, you need to travel, consider that. Consider bank account opening fees, things like that. So the average total for first-year business is roughly 565 euros. If you're kind of a more DIY type person and you do as much as possible as you can, or if you want to have accounting support, which I think is usually smart, then it's roughly 1,200 euros per year. And just more about the OU, I think Marius is probably the only one on this webinar who can pronounce it properly, but hopefully I'm doing a good enough job. But this is the most popular business form in Estonia. It's suitable for 1+ shareholder companies. And of course, Estonia recently changed its share capital contribution. So it used to be 2,500 euros up until February 1st. And now we have a 1 euro cent share capital, minimum share capital. So Estonia is making it even easier and lower cost for you to get started with your business. And of course, as you know, a limited liability company limits the shareholders' liability. And in Estonia, it's very easy to register. So business banking, again, lots of questions about this. So put them in the Q&A, but hopefully we'll cover the basics here. So there's 3 options that most e-residents choose for business banking. One of these is a payment institution or a fintech. These are companies like Wise or Revolut, or we have a chart where you can see some of the ones that are in our marketplace. But the benefit of these type of business banking providers is that the accounts can be opened entirely online. It also offers you the widest choice, but keep in mind that these institutions do not offer business loans. So if financing through a business loan is something you're interested in, not a good option for you. Another option is a bank in another EU or European Economic Area country. So if you have an existing business banking or just banking relationship with a bank in the European Economic Area, you can always approach them and ask if they're willing to open a business bank account for your Estonian company. We know e-residents have success with this, so this is an option for you. And the third option is traditional banks in Estonia. So this is for companies with a, quote, strong connection to Estonia. So what does that mean? That means you have some employees here, you have some business partners here, you have some relationships here, things like that. So that's what those banks want to see normally. And I think the key thing here is that if you want to open a business bank account for your Estonian company at a traditional bank in Estonia, this does require one personal visit to the bank. So you will have to come to Estonia to complete that process. So hopefully that gives you an overview of the 3 options. I think what I want to stress here is that these payment institutions and fintechs are your easiest, most flexible option and the best way to get started, I think, too, as well. So we do have a nice handy comparison chart here covering this information as well. So, sorry, let me go back to that. Oh, there we go. So again, these are all the business banking options that we have in the e-Residency marketplace. So these are companies that we work with, we've vetted, and we know they work with e-residents who have companies in Estonia. So you can see there's 2 traditional banks here, this LHV and Coop. So these are the ones you need to come to Estonia for and have a little bit stronger connection. And then one thing that's interesting too is you can see the first 2 here, AirWallex and WeTrust. These have an Estonian IBAN. So I know some people, if you know probably if you need that or not. So if you need an Estonian IBAN for your business bank account, those 2 options. But yeah, you can see here they all offer applications online. For the fintechs, most of them offer business debit cards, Visa or MasterCards, and most of them offer international payments. And I would like to invite someone from Xolo maybe to comment a little bit too. How do you work with business banking and any topics to add here?
Yeah, right. So basically, we are working with both LHV and all those fintechs, and we are actually able to integrate with the most of the banks around Europe. I guess the most important difference between those traditional banks and the fintech bank is is the 100,000 euros insurance that traditional banks cover. But I've heard a lot of complaints that some e-residents are not able to open a bank account in LHV, for example, and the reason is because they don't have strong enough connection with Estonia, like you mentioned previously. So what I recommend is to start with the Wise or Revolut or whichever bank fintech solution you prefer. And once you have built up this relationship, you can always go to the LHV afterwards.
Yeah, that's good. Go ahead.
Maybe just to add to that from my side, because I also saw some comments here. I think Revolut and the Wise and similar ones might be helpful for you guys because you probably already have set them up and they kind of let you do that completely location independent as well. So it could be a good starting solution. And then later you can still potentially consider LHV or any of the other options.
Yeah, and just to add here as well, we did 2 webinars last year, one with LHV and Co-op Bank in May, and another with fintechs Intergiro and a payment service provider, Decta. And videos of those webinars are on our YouTube channel. So if you want more information about, eligibility criteria, onboarding, the types of clients and businesses they're looking for, and how making the best chances of getting accounts with those types of banks and fintechs, I invite you to watch those webinars. They're on our YouTube channel, as I mentioned. And maybe also one more thing is that Maya has been an e-resident for 5 years and has had an LHV account for many of those years. So Maya, maybe you could just give your experience as well.
Yeah, okay. It was very straightforward, but I did have to visit Estonia then, which was a pleasure to do, and you only had to do it once. So, and at the time, Xolo or Leapin, as they were then, helped me set up that appointment. So I traveled knowing that I was going into that meeting and would come out with a bank account. I use Wise as well for any non-euro payments. It's just much easier to be able to send people an invoice that looks familiar to them with their own currency details. And also I use PayPal and Stripe for online content sales. And it's really easy in the Xolo dashboard to see that all integrated and get a clear picture of your cash situation at any given time. So they all talk to each other. They all have APIs. It's worth taking time to set up what you need, but it's also worth remembering that, as Maida said, you can add in other things. If you start with a fintech just to get going, you can set that up in an hour online, and then later on down the line, you can figure out if you're going to need loans or you want investment opportunities and so on. Then you might need to come and form a relationship with a bank, but you can add in all these things later on. Obviously, you need to keep an eye on the fees and how many different things you're operating as part of your business support system, but they do all connect with each other, and there will be a solution out there, especially with so many providers in the marketplace now.
All right, thank you. Let's can I?
Yeah.
All right, sorry.
That's
Oh, okay.
Oh,
there
sorry,
we go.
I forgot about this.
No,
My bad.
technical issue. We're back. All right. So I think one important thing too is that we're very happy to talk about the differences between Estonia and other countries as well. And that's something a question we get a lot too. Why should I set up in Estonia? Maybe until this webinar you didn't even know where Estonia was. So we have a comparison chart here. We also have all of these as blogs on our website, more in depth, so you can go in and read, comparing Estonia versus Delaware, which is of course a really important, big place to register a limited liability company in the US, Ireland, UK, and Singapore, which are all very big business hubs. So I think a few things I'd like to highlight is the time to register a business. So I mentioned earlier that we have this world record of 15 minutes. So that might not be your experience, but generally speaking, it takes about 2 hours once you're an e-resident to register a company in Estonia. So as you can see, compared to, the UK is pretty good at 24 hours, Singapore, a few business days, but again, much quicker than some of these other business hubs. Something I stressed before as well is that in Estonia, you do not need a local agent or local director. So this is something that you need in Delaware, something you need in Singapore. And if you're a non-EU founder in Ireland, you also need one of these. And of course, online setup is something as well. So in Estonia, you can do this fully online. So these other countries obviously have have online processes as well, but there are some caveats. So you still need to upload some documents, or or some physical documents, or sign some documents physically sometimes. So Estonia, we think, is really the one that can be done fully online. And also just wanted to give a quick shout out here too. We have this important offer that we're offering to Ukrainians. If there's any Ukrainians on the webinar today, that we are still reimbursing fees for Ukrainians. So if you if you apply for e-Residency and set up a company through one of the select service providers who are participating, you can get reimbursed for your fees. So we're really happy to do that. And we'll take a pause here and take questions regarding what we just talked about. So business banking, country comparisons.
And actually, the first question from Yuri is interesting. I think, Maya, in particular for you, because it's sort of relevant to what you've been doing over the past few years, marketing for blockchain projects. I think you've had some experience on that side of things, but I wonder if you and also Xolo would like to comment on this topic about blockchain and cryptocurrency marketing, and how to make sure that you do it and accept payments, and you can accept payments like within the laws of the world that are right now.
Yeah, it's a long time since I've accepted a payment in crypto. I have been paid in Bitcoin before, and I was able to use a payment gateway that was approved at the time, but it was some years ago, so that might be out of date. There are certain exchanges that were approved, but there isn't any native direct way. You can't receive crypto payments into your Estonian bank account, for example, as far as I know. But again, that could be out of date.
Oh, that's should be kind of true. Usually in Xolo, we don't really work with the crypto, except for some cases where some e-residents want to invest in crypto, but that's like a really limited activity we are supporting in that case.
And just and Yuri, just so you might want to take a look at Integgiro, which is a fintech. I think they do work with crypto as part of their service, so they might be able to help you if you're looking for that kind of niche.
You can invest in certainly in Bitcoin with the LHV growth account as well.
Yeah, there's a question here about accepting payments in US dollars. So Xolo can jump in here too, but I believe Wise, also the Wise borderless account allows you to accept payments in US dollars.
Absolutely.
Okay.
If we are talking about fiat currencies, then there is no difference for us. It all works for us.
Okay.
Victoria is asking about opening a personal bank account that's linked to your Estonian business bank account without being a permanent resident, tax resident. So e-Residency doesn't give you the right to get a personal bank account. It will be up to the Estonian bank. So if you already have a business account with them and you have, enough connection, your company has enough connection, and maybe even you have enough connection with Estonia in terms of coming here enough and having some form of office address or something, they may open you a personal bank account, but it will be totally up to them as the private business. And so there's someone asking, can I do a digital marketing business at consulting in German with an Estonian e-residence? So Maya, this is...
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, Philip, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's actually one of the most common things that we see consulting in marketing. By the way, maybe I should mention, so I'm actually German, and I see a lot of German people here on the webinar, so...
So Jagtar is asking if Xolo integrates with banks outside of Estonia and Europe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but we have a capability of integrating those banks with the Xolo account as well.
Go on, please. Yes.
Another question related to the cryptocurrency and other those more complex companies. So if the Henry is able to open an insurance agency or company in Estonia with my e-Residency. I think yes, but not with Xolo, but in general, yes, we actually have one e-resident called Christoph Hubner who already opened an insurance company with e-Residency. And it is fully remote. So
Diego is asking if he can register or buy property or a car on his company name. It is possible. I'm not sure what you mean by to have 0% tax, because there are different taxes to think about, which we will cover in the next section. So maybe you can give more information about that, but it is possible. It is definitely possible as a foreigner to buy property or a car and put it on your company name. Yes.
Maybe just one comment, because I see people putting their questions on the chat. So just as a reminder, if you can please put them on the Q&A, because otherwise they get lost. Maybe there's so many comments and questions.
And Diego's asking a similar, maybe this is an extension. So he wants to apply for a property mortgage, but doesn't reside physically in Estonia. We are going to cover taxes in the next section. I'm not sure that banks in Estonia would give you a mortgage if you live outside the country. You'd have to check with them. That would be a question for the banks. But I know that they can be quite conservative with foreigners. Like, for example, I have a mortgage here as a foreign national living in Estonia, and I do pay a little bit more in terms of interest. So, and I had to pay more of a deposit. So I'm not sure if you don't live here what they would do, but definitely check with banks on that question. Okay, any others that we can answer?
Yeah, I saw one.
No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
On the chat, because I saw that was kind of directed to Xolo, to us. So from Ava, question for business service provider like Xolo: can I use the Estonian virtual address, local contact person address in my invoices and formal post receiving and communication? So yes, the answer is yes, you can.
That's straightforward. I think there's one question here about funding. Unless one of our backstage people already answered this, but we have a new refreshed website, and it has a new funding page, and there's lots of resources.
Hasn't been launched yet, but it's coming soon.
Oops, sorry. I keep spoiling things here. Sorry, but there is some information about funding on there too, as well, currently, even right now. So.
Yeah, we also did a webinar in March on the topic of funding and networking and grants, government grants and growth in Estonia. So the video is on our YouTube channel. So if you have a spare hour, we had guests from Prototron and Startup Wise Guys on there. So maybe that would be a good start to find out more about funding here.
But in general, there's lots of opportunities, the Estonian Business Angels Network, things like that. So maybe not so relevant for solopreneurs. I guess solopreneurs don't normally, do that, but for others, yes.
Okay. I said that I was going to answer this and then I forgot to, but someone's asking about opening an insurance agency or company with e-Residency. So if you want to do this, you can, but just know that there are probably going to be license needs for you to do that. So take a look at the financial insurance authorities' requirements for licensing in Estonia for an insurance company. Okay, so if there's any more questions, let me know. Otherwise, I think we should probably move on to the last section, which is taxes. Okay, so the first thing I just want to say is that even though I am a trained and experienced lawyer. I'm not a tax lawyer, so I'm not a specialist in any way. So I'm going to give you an overview of international taxation and how cross-border and the types of cross-border taxes that you need to think about when you're running a business across borders. Also give you an insight into some of the concepts of international taxation that you need to know about, like permanent residency, dual taxation, for example, and cover, of course, the Estonian tax system and ways that you can, boost your presence here in Estonia so that you're more likely to be able to pay taxes in Estonia. But otherwise, I would recommend speaking to a tax expert in your own country, as well as here in Estonia, if you're looking to structure your business in a way to move your presence here. Okay, so let's start with an overview of the taxes to be aware of as an international entrepreneur, international solopreneur in this case. The first one is obviously personal taxes. And these are the taxes that you pay, your individual taxes that you pay on your salary, for example. And generally speaking, you will declare these in your country of tax residence. Mostly that's where you live or where you spend most of your time. The second type of taxes to be aware of are company taxes, and these, generally speaking, will be declared where your company is tax resident and or has a permanent establishment. And I will cover this a little bit more in the next slide. The third type of taxes to be aware of are payroll taxes or social contributions. In some countries, they are known as superannuation or pensions or employment labor taxes. And these are the taxes you pay, your company pays, or an employee, him or herself, pays on their salary to the government for the government contributions for employees. And generally speaking, these are declared where the employees are located or registered. And finally, we have value-added taxes or VAT. In some countries, it's called GST. These are sales taxes on consumption. The European Union has been trying over the last several years to streamline VAT rules, regulations, rates between and amongst EU countries. It's not completely perfect and it's not completely the same. The rates in particular are very different depending on which EU country we're talking about, but they have managed to come up with a couple of schemes called the one-stop shop and import one-stop shop schemes, which do make things a little bit easier. So this is a general, so this statement that I'm making here is a general statement thanks to these schemes, which is that online sellers, if you're selling your services or goods online, you can declare the VAT in the EU country where your company is VAT registered. This is not a total rule of thumb. There will be exceptions. There might be circumstances where you need to declare where the clients are or where partners are or in different situations, but this is a general rule of thumb thanks to those streamlined schemes. Okay, so let's go back to the company taxes and just go into a little bit more detail here because this is quite a complicated topic, and I don't think there is one person in the world who knows every single thing about it even. So don't be too worried if it's confusing, because I think even some tax lawyers still find it confusing. So the first thing to note is that your Estonian company will be considered automatically an Estonian tax resident when it's registered by the Estonian Tax and Customs Board. A couple of things to note though. Firstly, if your company is also considered a tax resident or your activities create a permanent establishment in another country, your company may also have tax liabilities there. Now, I'm going to use the example of Germany just because they are the German tax authority is probably the most fervent, I would say, the most excited about foreign tax liabilities of its citizens. So, for example, if you're living in Germany and you're running your company from Estonia, but you do all your work in Germany, you hold all your board meetings in Germany, you have an office there, you have employees there, you register your intellectual property and other assets, cars, vehicles, whatever, in Germany, it's very likely, very strong likely that the German tax authority will say that your company owes corporate taxes because of permanent establishment in Germany. So that's the first thing. And there are other countries that will consider the same thing. This will depend on the tax agreements between countries, between Estonia and those countries. But Germany is just an easy example. The other thing to note, and remember that I said this right at the beginning, is that e-Residency is not tax residency. So it doesn't exempt companies from dual tax residency or foreign tax liabilities. Luckily, though, Estonia has signed over 60 treaties with countries to avoid double taxation. So any dividends distributed in Estonia may be exempted in full from corporate income tax here. So then in that scenario, you would pay the tax in the country where the permanent establishment is, in this example that I'm using, Germany, and you would be exempt from paying tax in Estonia. So don't worry, you should not be double taxed, but contact a local tax consultant for professional advice and double check any tax agreements between your country and Estonia as well. So the most competitive tax code in the world is Estonia, and it has been for the last 9 years. It has minimal tax regulation and low rates, comparatively speaking. They're not the lowest in the world, but they are comparably lower to a lot of countries. There is no annual corporate income tax. This doesn't mean there's no taxes, but it just means that you don't pay tax as soon as you start earning turnover for your company. Instead, you pay 0% tax on your reinvested profits. So any money that you make, any profits that you make for your company that you put back into the company, you don't pay tax on those. Anything that you distribute, for example, by way of dividends, the standard rate is 20%. If you pay that over a few years, over 3 years or more, the rate will go down to 14%. VAT in Estonia is standard 20%, and you must register as a VAT payer if you start earning over 40,000 euros per year for your company. I've already mentioned these one-stop shop and import one-stop shop regimes. They have been put in place in the EU to simplify VAT procedures. And I know that the EU is working hard to put even more in so that it's really streamlined, but it takes time with all the different members. In Estonia, taxes can be declared and paid online. I think we've mentioned this a few times. And this last statement is not a slogan. It's absolutely true. The Estonian Tax and Customs Board is extremely friendly and they're really responsive. And they even have a dedicated email for non-resident taxpayers. So you can always ask any questions about Estonian taxes and these kinds of things to them directly, and they will get back to you. I think they say within 2 days, but normally within a day. So as I said at the beginning, Estonia has been number one on the Tax Competitiveness Index in the OECD for 9 years running. And that is not really looking like it will change anytime soon. So if you want to be able to pay corporate taxes in Estonia, there are a few things to know not to get around, but to make sure that this permanent establishment topic doesn't come up in another country. So one thing that you can do is rent an office in Estonia. For solopreneurs, that might not necessarily be the most feasible or efficient way to do things. So I think even having like a co-working desk at a co-working space could help. Hiring employees or contractors, not necessarily employees, but contractors to help you if you have that type of business in Estonia could help. And also traveling here every now and then and holding your board meetings here is actually quite a good way to show that you have a connection and that most of your big strategic decisions are made here. The other thing that you can do is you can register assets of your company and intellectual property here in Estonia, so that you can show that your company really is holding its main value here. Another way to avoid the permanent establishment problem is to become a digital nomad and not have a tax residency, or to relocate to Estonia. We do have quite a lot of e-residents who've actually now become residents, and so they're proper tax-paying residents of Estonia. And if you want to learn more about this link here, bringing business to Estonia, has a lot more information about the types of things you can do to help build your connection to Estonia, which will help you legally pay your corporate taxes here, but it may also help you on the banking side as well, going back to this strong connection topic we talked about before. And I just want to shout out in this photo, the guy in the middle, between me and Mattis, actually, funnily enough, is Chris Shirley. He's a UK citizen, but has been living in Estonia now for 1.5 years. I think initially on the digital nomad visa, and I think now it's turned into a regular long stay visa. And he's an e-resident, and he runs House of Hiatus, a brand marketing agency out of Estonia. And I think a lot of the time he's doing work on his laptop while cycling around the forests of Estonia. So very cool, adventurous guy. Okay, so let's have a few questions. I just want to say as well that we will go sort of 10, 15 minutes over the hour, just because there are still quite a lot of questions to get through. Maya, Philip, or Mattis, are you seeing any topics to cover?
Like from the presentation wise, I think we covered quite most of the topics. And last slide was definitely useful guide for a lot of e-residents. I think I might steal it from you.
I'll send it to you, no worries.
I have a question, maybe, if I could. So every time we do these webinars, we always invite one of our marketplace members here. I think it's really valuable. So this time we have Xolo. Really happy to have Philip and Mattis here today. So I know the taxation, I look in the chat, there's lots of questions. As Hannah mentioned, none of us are tax experts here. But what do you recommend if someone has tax questions? How can Xolo help them with this? Do you have people who can help them, or how do you help people if they approach you with these types of questions?
Yes, we have our local accountants, and actually a lot of people just send us an email before actually even signing up for Xolo, and we're still happily answering all those questions. So just write us, and then we try to help you as much as we can.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a good way, because there might be some like very individual questions as well that are maybe not relevant to everyone here. So just reach out. And maybe one thing, if I may, because I saw there was quite some activity and excitement about this offer for Ukrainians that you mentioned, Alex, before.
Yeah.
But maybe state here, if I can make a little plug, that we actually have an offer for everyone. So not just for Ukrainians, which could be quite attractive, speaking about costs. So we actually offer to everyone to have the company state fee reimbursed plus the first 3 months free if you join Xolo. So that could be very attractive as well.
And how do people get more information about that?
So we can actually drop maybe a link here and also in the follow-up email. But if you just go on our Leap page, I actually shared it before in the chat somewhere. You can maybe drop it again. Or Mattis, maybe you can do that in the meantime. There will be all the information there on this. But what you can also, of course, do is first just write us an email to make sure we can actually help you for your specific case, because maybe there are a few cases we cannot support, like if you are, for example, purely a blockchain company or need to accept some areas in this space. So feel free to reach out.
Thank you. Right. So Brendan has asked if we can email the presentation. Tomorrow you will receive an email with a link to our webpage where I have put a PDF of these slides. And we're also live streaming this webinar on YouTube, so you'll be able to watch again this webinar as well. We'll probably edit it a little bit today, so I maybe wait until tomorrow or the next day to get the full video. But the video will also be there as well, so don't worry about that.
So Brent is asking if e-Residency and setting up a company in Estonia with this program is is it more for virtual and service-based companies, or for hardware or companies doing physical goods? So I think we can be quite transparent. I think the vast majority of e-residents, and especially on this webinar, solopreneurs, we're talking about solopreneurs here mainly, are in the virtual or the services space or internet-based businesses space, right? That's where we see the majority of people. But there are e-residents who do work in physical goods and do, drop shipping or things like that. But definitely you have to, do your homework on that and make sure that when you're working in the physical space, that's, you understand the implications of that. So yeah, what is possible.
In general, there are other service providers who support those kinds of activities. So
yeah,
you will not be left alone.
Peter's asking about place of effective management. Yes, I understand your question. I was trying to sort of simplify for this webinar some very complicated concepts into sort of one general idea around permanent establishment, but the types of conditions and factors in place that a tax authority will look at in a country to see whether they think that company should pay taxes there is very similar for both. So the first one is the place of effective management is to work out whether the company is actually a tax resident in the country, and the other one is permanent establishment. But they will look at very similar factors, and also, so I don't think anything I said was necessarily wrong, but yes, if you want to get more specific and talk about different concepts, sure, that is something to think about. But I do think that what you suggest there, maybe holding a meeting, a board meeting, to accept your company's annual report, for example, once a year in Estonia, that would go some way to suggest that you're effectively managing your company in Estonia. But talk to a tax expert, please. Someone's asking about investing in share markets. So I'm not sure if this is something that many Xolo clients do, but there are definitely ways that you can invest using your Estonian company as an e-resident. So there's a couple of actually Estonian startups called Lightyear and Grundfin. There's also Interactive Brokers, which is a more internationally renowned one. You can actually sign up to those with your OU, with your Estonian company, and you can invest through that. The tax will work in a similar way to how I talked about it today. A little bit more complicated consideration of whether the income is passive or active. Mm-hmm. And also you might need to think about withholding taxes as well. But this is something to take up with your service provider, your tax lawyer, and because it will depend on your situation, the types of investments you want to do, and which country you live in as well.
Maybe just one comment to that, without giving any detailed advice, where you should obviously contact your local person of trust. But generally, what people in Estonia do, with Estonian companies, is rather invest through their company than doing it on an individual basis. So that's usually more beneficial on average. There might be differences for your specific case, but on average, that's what most people do.
It's actually a really good reason why we do it through the OU. It's because if you invest with your personal account, then you have to pay taxes whether your capital increases or not. But if you do it through the OU, then you have to pay taxes only for the dividends you pay out, basically.
Kurt is asking, where do I have to pay taxes if I have no residence in Germany when I'm an IT digital nomad? So this will really depend on many things. So it might be that if you're traveling a lot, if you're traveling like week to week and you really, really have no residence, it might just be a matter of choosing a place to make your residence so that you can pay as little tax as you want. This is this concept of like tax arbitrage or digital tax arbitrage. But you should really double check if you're traveling for longer periods in countries, even like 2 months or 3 months, some countries will claim that you are a tax resident there. So be really careful as a digital nomad. Don't just assume that just because you're traveling and you don't have an address, like a typical address, that you're not a tax resident somewhere. I would definitely talk to, there's a lot of tax specialists for digital nomads, so I would talk to them. One thing that you might consider is if you're German, I assume, making Estonia your tax residency could be an option, for example, because then you would very, very easily also be able to argue that you can pay your corporate taxes here if you're a tax resident here. So that could be one option. We also have many e-residents who live in different places like Portugal, Spain. If they're not Spanish, they don't have to pay taxes for a few years. Cyprus, Malta, where the taxes are quite low. So, there's all sorts of ways they do it. They don't necessarily live there full time, but they that's where they have their base. Maya, maybe you know a little bit more about this topic than I do, but that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, it's complicated. And I think you gave the example of Germany. Spain, as a tax authority, is also very interested, obviously, in the fact that there might be corporation taxes which are not based in Spain, that they would quite like a piece of. I think the best thing is to take advice locally from somebody who understands the tax system, both where you live and in Estonia, and can give you advice on the big picture. I dropped a link in the chat to the people that I use in Spain and that also act as advisors in the remote work Spain community, because he is an e-resident from the marketplace and understands how it works in both places. For me, and again, this isn't advice for anybody else, but for me, what works is to be a freelancer in Spain and tax resident here. I don't have any Spanish clients, and I also don't accumulate profits in my Estonian company. I use it as a vehicle for the flexibility, for the limited liability, and for the low admin costs. So I'm not building up investments in Estonia, which might be more likely to interest tax authorities. You can just basically invoice it all out and deal with it locally where you are, which is one way to approach it. But as I say, this isn't advice for anybody else.
So, I think, one big overarching thing here too is that tax advice is highly individual. It's really difficult for any of us here to give you the kind of advice you need. But one thing is I can see a lot of networking happening in the chat, which is really amazing. That's actually part of why we do these webinars here. But I think in the very beginning of this presentation, we talked about community, the importance of community. So there's a Facebook group as well that you can join, eResidents of Estonia. It's really active. And so maybe you can find someone there that's in your situation or very close to your situation and ask them how they do things, or like Maya has shared the advisor that she uses, maybe someone there can share an advisor that they use and also in our marketplace too, you can find tax advisors that speak different languages, that have experience with different countries like Germany, France, UK, Spain. So just look for these professionals and don't try to DIY so much on your taxes, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So that was a great segue, Alex, to I think a wrap up as well, because there are a few other things that you can do if you have more questions. Before we get there, though, you will get a link to a survey about this webinar. It would be we'd really appreciate it if you filled that out and gave us honest feedback, constructive feedback, because I really do read those surveys and try and get feedback and improve the webinars as we provide them. For example, last year we never invited e-residents to join us for the sessions, but we got a lot of feedback that it would be really great to hear from a real e-resident. And as you can see, we now invite Maya and other e-residents along to provide their experiences. So please do that. And then the next one is that we have a subreddit where you can ask even more questions about e-residency and get community answers to that. Yeah. And we also have our support team moderates that subreddit as well. So they're having a peek in to make sure that things are correct and right at the time. So that's a really great place to see if your question is already asked, or if someone can answer.
I think the subreddit's even better than the Facebook group in some ways. So hopefully Mark Zuckerberg's not listening, but definitely I think it's even, yeah. So
he's
it's
always listening.
Yeah, he's always listening. Right? So check that out, please. Yeah.
The third way is to contact support. So you can see the email here. That will go to our lovely support team, and they will answer it within a couple of days. I think they normally answer within a couple of days, normally less. So that's a really great place to send any questions that you think were unanswered today. And finally, if you're ready to apply, if you're not an e-resident yet, but you've been convinced by all of us, you can already apply online now. Okay, thank you so much, Maya. Really appreciated having you here. Anything that you would like to plug or finish with? I know you're going to be here next week, so.
I will. Can't wait to be in Tallinn again, my first time since BC. So that'll be great fun. In the meantime, I put my LinkedIn in the chat. Always glad to connect with people there, or Twitter. Come and join us in Remote Work Spain and Facebook if you're so inclined, if that applies. And check out the Future is Freelance podcast. That's my plugs done.
And Philip and Mattis, thank you so much for joining us from Xolo. How was your experience today, and any last things to say to the audience?
Yeah, thanks a lot. It was super interactive. I think it was probably the most international webinar I've ever been on. So I'm definitely impressed, and thanks for all the questions.
Yeah, same here. It was really, really interesting to see so many people from so many different countries. And yeah, if you're up to sign up with Xolo, then we are here to help you. You can have your company registration reimbursed and get the first 3 months for free. So
wonderful. And we hope to see you at eResidency events soon. And thank you so much for joining us and listening to our presentation and being so active as participants as well.
Thank you.